he talked about how the small things, the simple things are the greatest gift in this life. So like watching the sunrise, watching the sunset, watching the hummingbirds, listening to the birds, like feeling the sun on your skin, like that is what is so, that's what makes this life so beautiful, because we don't get to experience that when we pass on.
Welcome to the Embrace and Expand podcast, where we talk about everything from spirituality, self-development, relationships, mindfulness, wellness, and everything that will help you embrace all that you are so you can expand into the best version of yourself. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Embrace and Expand podcast. Today, we are inviting a guest back who was in the beginning of season 2. And she is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to astrology, when it comes to breathwork, when it comes to bringing the body just back into a state of homeostasis. And we were just chatting a little bit before we started, and both of us have been going through very, very similar things over the last several months. So we're really going to be treating this more as just a conversation between two friends, more so than an interview. So I hope you will enjoy this conversation as we move forward with Hali Bailey. So Hali, welcome back to the Embrace and Expand podcast.
Hi, I'm so happy to be back. I feel like it's such an honor to be invited back on. Like, I really enjoyed the first conversation we had, but like you said, I think we talked in March. It was last we talked, and so much has happened since then. It's crazy to think how much can happen in such a short amount of time.
For sure.
I'm excited to dive in.
Well, so while we're kind of on that tangent, like let's go ahead and dive into just how things have changed for you, not only from your own personal journey, but also energetically. Since you do know so much about astrology, maybe you can guide us through like how the different energies and the different shifts between the planets and the phases have really affected all of us moving through. And if you guys can hear in the recording the noise in the background, that is our new little kitten who is running amok behind me playing with some toys. So we are not in a studio. We're recording live as life happens. So hopefully it's not too distracting for you. But yeah, Hali, why don't you just take us through kind of like how things have shifted for you?
Sure. And I will say I have 3 dogs. So if you hear them in the background, that's why. There are little spirit animals. They like to be very much involved in the conversation. I always find when I'm holding sessions or holding spaces, they like to be involved. So maybe your little kitty just wants to be a part of the conversation too and hold the space for us today. So let's see. We are moving through crucial times, transformational times as a collective. And I've recognized my role within the collective because of that. I've realized that if my inner state is not grounded and centered, it impacts the collective state.
Yeah.
Essentially, what's happening right now, we're moving through eclipse season. So depending on when you're listening to this, it won't matter necessarily because we're going to be in this energy for the next 2 years. So till about 2025. And with astrology, with life, we're always moving through different patterns and cycles. So I always like to prompt people, think about what was going on in your life between 2013 and 2016. One, in regards to relationships, because that is the similar energy that's going to be playing out now. So we were in a Libra Aries nodal axis during that time. And now we're shifting into Aries Libra. So we're just flip-flopping.
Okay.
So in 2013 to 2016, start to notice like the patterns, what was going on within your relationships? Where were you compromising your own needs? Where were you still codependent? And now we're shifting into what am I doing independently to contribute to the collective? How do I need to make sure I'm taking care of myself and standing in my sovereignty, standing in my power? And the words I've been using for this time is spiritual warriorship. And so if we have inner conflict within ourselves, how do you think that's going to show up in the world? So our inner state contributes to the collective state. So if there are internal battles that are going on within you right now, it's going to play out in the collective. And with how turbulent and scary these times can feel, if we're not contributing to it by making sure we're finding inner peace every single day, Yeah, we're going to show up on the internet fighting. We're going to fight with our brothers and sisters instead of coming together. And really what this eclipse energy is showing us right now is how can we come together through being sovereign within ourselves, but also holding out a hand to someone who needs support. And so I've been feeling this like huge urge to, one, make sure I'm taking care of myself. So if I'm not feeling regulated, if I'm able to ground, I notice I have to slow down and take a moment to breathe or ground in nature or do whatever I need to do instead of pushing ahead. But also I'm recognizing that I can't just sit back. So this Aries point, it's all about taking action. So, Libra can be a little passive. So when we're talking about the North and South node, we're collectively talking about our destiny point. So right now it's switching into Aries, Libra. So Aries is about taking action, moving forward, finding momentum. And our North node is in Libra. How are we still passive? Where are we not contributing? And so this affirmation that I've also been working with is action is the highest form of prayer. And so just, since the last time we talked in March, which was actually kind of close to the last eclipse, which is interesting, I've noticed where have I been unable to take action and what do I need to do so that I can find that forward momentum?
Yeah. What's so fascinating about this is how, right now we are living in very crazy times. There's wars happening throughout the world. We are, in my opinion, and I'm not a financial expert, this is not financial advice, but I feel like we are on the cusp of another massive collapse in a way. Back during the 2008 financial fiasco, I was in the mortgage industry. And so I got to see firsthand the shit show that was banking at that time. And there are a lot of similar things happening now that were happening then that are very clear indicators that we are on the verge of another big storm, if you will.
Yeah.
But the more that I've been doing inner work over the last 8 years, really diving deep into myself and seeing how my internal world is directly reflected based upon what's happening outside of me. And the more I allow my internal world to become chaotic, to become disordered, to become, not a state of calm, all of a sudden my outside world starts to fall apart. It starts to become chaotic. It starts to become something other than what it is that I'm trying to manifest. Do you agree that the more that we can do the inner work and focus on what's happening within ourselves and with our own life, and the more that we can come back to that state of calm, come back to homeostasis, that will just naturally start to show up in our outside world as well?
Absolutely. And I really do believe that the world doesn't show us what we need. It shows us who we are. So if we're if we're feeling chaotic, if we're feeling unsteady, ungrounded, unable to move forward, there's something going on internally that has to be exposed. And we are in Scorpio season. We are in this eclipse portal that we're in and that we're going to be feeling into. Whatever's going on right now in your external world is showing you where you are not free within yourself right now. And I've really been sitting with this concept of how can I contribute? How can I contribute? I felt helpless in a lot of ways. And part of this spiritual warriorship is knowing that we're not helpless. And, if you can't contribute financially, if you can't lend a hand, if you can't do anything tactfully, the power of our thoughts and prayers is not it's one of the most powerful things we have, right? We always say our thoughts create our reality. Our thoughts are spells. There's a reason that we are so tuned into that. So if we're emotionally dysregulated, if our nervous system is dysregulated, those thoughts, we're not going to be able to contribute in ways that are constructive and productive. And so really, if you're not taking care of yourself every day, that's where you need to start. And so instead of feeling helpless, I've been shit, what do I need to do? What do I need to do every day to make sure that I can contribute in ways that are meaningful, and not in a way of panic, but in a way of feeling rooted in myself, in my truth, so that I can help others who can't regulate right now. They don't have the privilege to regulate, even if that's sitting in prayer and sending light to others. Like, that's a lot. There's a lot of power within that, but we've forgotten that, right, in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, because of
Yeah.
the instant gratification. We want to make sure we're contributing right now, versus if I just take time and settle within myself, that prayer is going to be much more meaningful. It's going to come from a place of, from my heart, not from my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good case to also remember, especially being a recovering people pleaser. You know, it's always easier for me to take care of others, to hold space for others, to give others what it is that can help them to come back to that calm state of being, to come back to who they truly are. It's much more difficult to do it for myself. And I think it's easy to fall into that trap of, what can I do for the world? What can I do for other people to make the world a better place? And the true answer, the best thing that any of us can do to make this world a better place, is make our internal world a better place. To make sure that we're showing up with a full cup each and every single day, because that's the only way that you are actually going to be able to help anybody else, is coming from a full cup. If you are showing up with a cup that's half full, how do you expect to fill somebody else's cup that's also half full? Because if you fill their cup from a half full cup, now you have an empty cup. And what good is that going to do to the world if you're now completely depleted and the only thing that you can choose to do is lay in bed all day and zone out on Netflix?
Right. And there's a time and place for that, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And I also, like, I completely agree. I'm a recovering people pleaser as well, so I really can resonate with what you're saying. And again, this is a pattern that I'm working through right now. And this is why I love astrology, is because it's like, when I go back and reflect on what was going on in my life between 2013 to 2016, I was in such a people pleasing phase that it like took me out of my power completely. And so now it's time to reclaim that. And so I think it's a beautiful thing that you said around, like, we have to fill our cup before we can pour into others. And I always say, we have to be in service to ourselves before we can be in service to others. We have to be selfish in order to be selfless. And that can get really misconstrued, because people are like, oh, it's egotistical. But actually, there's a lot of beauty within that, because you're making yourself the priority. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important relationship we have, is the one we have with ourselves. And so this South Node in Libra, it's like showing us, where are we compromising our own needs? Where are we still people pleasing? Where are we not standing on our truth? Because if we're meant to move forward as a collective, we have to make sure that we are not identifying with the world around us, but we're in our own unique power. That's where, that's where true sovereignty comes in. And it's a lesson. I don't have this figured out by any means. It's definitely been a long journey of figuring out what that means for me personally. But, it's so worth it. And I really do believe it's the reason we're here, is to understand who we are to our core, our unconscious, our subconscious, all of it, right? Like, we have to bring that to the surface. We have to bring it to the light, because if we can look at it, acknowledge it, feel it, and shift it, we can free ourselves. We can really heal, and then we can move forward. But if we're in that place of contraction, we can never expand.
Yeah. It's like, our teacher and mentor, Stephen Jaggers, how he always says is that when you live from a place of contraction and you have contracted thoughts, then you just bring in more things to be contracted around. You bring in more people who are contracted. You bring in more situations that are contracted. And it doesn't create an environment to allow for expansion and growth to be able to happen.
Yeah.
So it's like we kind of touched on before we hit record of like, you can't expect life to change if you yourself are unwilling to change.
Right.
If you're not willing to shift out of your comfortable patterns and habits, and I think this is very synchronistic that like the topic of patterns is coming up, because I taught my very first class for the somatic breathwork online training yesterday. And the feelings of like nervousness and unworthiness, like those patterns were starting to come up right before the call. But I'm very confident when it comes to these topics. I'm very confident when it comes to talking about somatic breathwork and teaching all of it. And one of the topics that we discussed yesterday was honoring the innate intelligence of your patterns. And the fact that we all have patterns that repeat throughout our lives that were created at one point in time to keep us safe. It was our body's innate inner intelligence that did what it needed to do in the moment to help us to continue to live throughout life, to be in a safe place that we could continue to move forward. So what once was a very adaptive pattern over time can become maladaptive if you never take the opportunity to bring awareness around that pattern and why it keeps coming up.
Sure.
So if you can think about, like, everybody listening, just take a moment really quick and go ahead and close your eyes. If you're not listening to this in a car, if you're listening to this car, maybe stop and come back to this later, but close your eyes, tune into your body, take a deep breath, and think about a pattern that is coming up for you right now that's holding you back. Maybe that's procrastination. Maybe it's the imposter syndrome. Maybe it's not wanting to show up for yourself. Maybe it's avoidance. Whatever that pattern is, look into it a little bit deeper and see how, when that pattern first appeared in your life, at how intelligent it was and how it was designed to keep you safe. And breathe into that intelligence for a second. And breathe into the fact that because it was an intelligent response from your body, it doesn't need to be fixed. It doesn't need to be changed. It just needs to be allowed to be. And the more you can bring the awareness around that pattern, the more you are then given the opportunity of choice. That when that pattern presents itself, now that you have awareness around that pattern being an intelligent response, is it still an intelligent response based upon what you're going through at this time? If it's a yes, follow that pattern. If it's a no, this is your choice to be able to make a different pattern, to create a different perspective, to choose a different path that will then create a new neurological pathway in your brain that then gives your autonomic nervous system the opportunity to, again, make a different choice when that trigger or that situation or that person presents itself that then brings up that pattern.
As I'm feeling into that, I'm like, that's spiritual warriorship.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. It's having that full awareness of self, to recognize, like, I do have the power of choice. And again, we're speaking from a very privileged place because, one, we have so many tools to get us to this place. But it is whoever is listening, if you do feel like you're in a stuck place, it is your responsibility, if you have the ability to do so, to take that first step. And like you were saying, you had to step into your courage with teaching that class yesterday. Like, and I always tell my clients, I always tell myself, the universe always rewards courage. And I don't know if we talked about this the last time, but I'm going to bring it up again. One of the things I'm really fascinated with, death as a whole, and understanding the other side, and really honoring, like, when we are in our life review process, as we are in our final days here, what's the biggest regret people have? And it's not facing their fears. That's one of the biggest regrets that people have. I've read about this so many times, and it's one of the most common themes. So, part of this time that we're in, it's like, we have to face our fears. So what if we fail? That's like the whole point of this experience. Like, if we don't fail, then we're not learning. And so I really love that piece around, like, if we can have that full awareness of who we are and what our own needs are, then we can take action in ways that are meaningful. But if you are in a state where you're grieving, if you're in a state, which, I think we're always in this series of grieving, but like, if you're in a place where you are super contracted and you are wounded and you're afraid and you are not, and I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably in a place where you're pretty safe, in the realms of everything that's going on. But if you have that opportunity, like, and you're ready to grow, look to see, where do you feel fear in your life? Where do you feel afraid to move forward? Because that's usually where our growth is ready. Like, that's where we're ready to step into the next cycle of our life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's stepping into our courage, facing our fears. And I bet you felt so good after you like stepped into that, because you're like, wow, like I can show up in ways that are scary. And I'm sure that people, like, I was scared to come onto the podcast today. I'm going to be totally transparent. I'm always scared because there's a part of us that it's scary to be vulnerable. It's scary to do something new, but that's how we create those new adaptive patterns.
Yeah.
That's how we do it. And like, I would have never done breath work. I would have never found this community or started facilitating sessions or doing the training or meeting you if I wouldn't have taken that first step and just gone to the session last April in 2022. Like, I would have never been down this path if I wouldn't have taken that first step.
I love that you keep reiterating that first step, because that's really what it is. It's not about making huge changes within our life. It's not about being drastic. It's about taking baby steps. It's about taking just that one step, moving in the direction that you want to go. And once you take that one step, then you can take another step. And then you can take another step. You can even pause, take a breath, and then take another step.
Yeah.
It's like that old adage of, we have to crawl before we can walk, and we have to walk before we can run. We all have to go through very specific steps to be able to get to that point. But for some of us, it's easier to see what that next step is. And for others, it's harder to see it because we're seeing the future end goal of where we want to be.
Yeah.
But we can't see what that next step is that's going to take us closer to that future goal. And I went through it was like a 3-day workshop with Mel Robbins. And one of the examples that she was talking about is there's box steppers and then there's box jumpers. And the box steppers are the people who know exactly what the next step is that they need to take. But the challenge for box steppers is that they can't project themselves into the future far enough to connect with their dream, to connect where they actually want to be. They can only really see the next step. And they can't take another step until they take that next step, because all they can see is the one next step. Yeah. Box jumpers, which is what I resonate with, can see the future projection of where they want to be. They can see that final destination point of, whether it be leading a class, getting certified in something, getting married, having the house, whatever it is. They can see that thing, but they can't see what that next step that they need to take in order to get them there. Yeah. So it's beneficial that if you are a box stepper, you need to find a box jumper to bring in your life to help them, to help you see what that future thing is. And if you're a box jumper like myself, I am thankful every single day that my wife, Rachel, is a box stepper. So we work really well together. Yeah. So it's like when you can find that relationship where one takes one role and another takes another role, well, then you can work together as a team to make whatever it is that you want to have happen. Yeah. But it takes taking that next step, regardless if you're a box stepper or a box jumper.
Yeah. I always say, be where your feet are. And so kind of just to give you a little glimpse into what's been going on in my world, like I have all of these grand visions for what I want to create and build and all of this. And I realized that my daily habits weren't contributing to my future self, right? It's like you said, it's the small steps. It's the small gradual changes that we make that lead to the bigger ones. And, I always say I'm my number one client. So what am I doing with myself in order to show up for the world? Like kind of going back to what we started with talking about, like, what am I doing every single day? And so just one example, I've been in the gym. I'm a personal trainer. I've competed in 2 bodybuilding shows. I'm a gym rat, right? And since moving into our house last July, I haven't been going to the gym. We built a gym in our house, but there's something about actually physically going to the gym, driving there, playing your music. Like there's something about actually getting there, right? That there's a ritual within that. And I didn't go for a year and a half, and it was really healing. I was definitely in my hermit phase, my cocoon phase of healing. And I turned 30 in August, and I just had this moment of like, something's got to give. Like I felt stuck. I felt stagnant. I couldn't figure out what it was. And I was like, well, I'm beating my head against a wall here. This is the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. So I was like, why don't I go get a gym membership? Like it's been so long. I've been thinking about it for months now, right? So this is where it's really important to have that self-awareness and honoring that intuition that we have. It's like we have to slow down to hear it. And I was slowing down. I could hear it, but I ignored it. I completely ignored it until I had a moment where I was like, I need to take action. Like I need to do something different. And so I got a gym membership. I've been going at least 4 times a week. It's changed my energy. I've felt a lot more momentum and movement in my life. And, now that I took that first step, I am now working with 2 yoga studios, like which I wasn't doing before. I'm in this path of creating my own podcast. There's a lot of things actually moving now because I took one actionable step of getting a gym membership. And it can be that simple, but it can change your entire life. It can change the trajectory of your life. And I didn't realize how much I was craving it until I actually did it. And that was my soul coming through for the past several months of saying, go to the gym, go back into community. You need to find your tribe. Like, you need to get out and hug people again, like, because I've been missing that. And so, another part of this too is, it's little baby steps, and every single day, it might not feel like we're contributing or making a difference. But when I look back from just the past year, just to see how far I've come, I'm blown away with the change within myself. And a huge part of that. So I don't know if you're familiar with the tarot deck, but sorry if you hear my dogs in the background.
Oh, you're good. It's good.
Okay. The Fool card in the tarot, which represents Aries, he's walking on the path. He's about to take his next step, and he's either going to fall into the cliff or realize that he can take a step backward and readjust. And his dog's barking at him in the tarot, in this card. And I always look to that card because he's looking up, not looking down. He's looking up. So he has his feet on the ground. But when I tune into that card, it's like, I have to trust. I have to lean into my faith. I have to hold the vision up high and trust that whatever is meant for me is already on its way. Nothing's going to take me off the path from achieving whatever I'm meant to, from receiving whatever I'm meant to. So it's finding a way to hold the vision for our life, but within that, trusting and surrendering. And, I'm a recovering people pleaser, but I'm a recovering controlling person. I'm very controlling. And so if I can take the reins off of that a bit more, it's allowed me to open other doors to my life for new opportunities, connections, experiences, emotions, all the things to come in, because I was closing myself off before. So just as an example of like, if something you've been feeling into something that you want to change, maybe it's your diet, maybe it's your time on your phone, maybe it's the way you talk to yourself, like just little things like that can make a world of difference and literally change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very synchronistic that you said you decided to get back into the gym and start moving your body.
Yeah.
And through moving your body, all of a sudden, everything in your life started moving too.
Yeah.
And I love saying this in breathwork sessions of movement and sound help to shift energy more than anything. But it's not just the energy that's within your body, it's the energy of your life. And so if you become stagnant, if you stop moving, if you just sit on the couch every day after you get done with work or whatever it is, and don't choose to take care of yourself in that way, then everything else in your life is also going to become stagnant, is also going to become still, is going to become contracted because you are being contracted. This Hold on, as my kitten is eating plants that he's not supposed to be eating. Hold on. The joys of recording a podcast in real life, right?
Literally.
And so again, what's interesting about that is that if we actually stop thinking everything is so complex, and if we start to realize that everything is so easy, and so easy in the way that if you think something is hard, you can also think that something is easy.
Yeah.
Because it's just a story.
Yeah.
The same thing as yesterday, the story that was playing in the back of my mind from that little annoying voice that we all have that's saying, you haven't prepared enough, you don't know enough, you're not good enough. Comparing myself to Stephen and Fish, who are the founders of somatic breathwork, which, like, yes, they created this movement, but I've been doing it for almost 2 years. I've been living in this. Exactly. And so recognizing that, and this was a reflection that I received from one of the other mentors at the end of the call, as everybody was just telling me how great of a job that I was doing. And I was like, yeah, but it's, it was nerve-wracking to try and fill Stephen's shoes.
Right.
And the reflection I received is that I'm not trying to fill somebody else's shoes because I'm already wearing my own.
Yes.
And it's really when we can trust ourselves, when we can trust the universe, and when we can trust the people that we surround ourselves with, nothing is impossible. I shared that exact verbiage on my stories yesterday after I got off that call and was just like on cloud 9, feeling so great at how good the call went. Like, it went better than I possibly could have imagined. And like, I just trusted that the right words were going to show up when they needed to. I trusted that I had support because I did. I had a whole team of mentors behind me to fill in the gaps of where I wanted to offer up that space of, like, I don't have the exact words right now. How about you, mentors? Do you have the exact words? And all of a sudden somebody else brought exactly what needed to be said, and that allowed the class to continue to move on. Yeah. So for me, it was the great lesson of, we are never alone if we're willing to see all of the support that's constantly around us. But that's not just seeing the people that are physically here in our life. Yeah. It's tapping into the endless support that we have from the universe, that we have from our ancestors, that we have from our spirit guides, that we have from the power animals that live around us. Yeah. We always have that support to be able to lean on. We don't have to do this alone.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love affirmations. But another one that I've been using is, I am a love that never leaves. So I have everything within me, but also I know that I can lean on people when I need them. And that's been a big part of my healing this year, and in particular. And I do want to talk about a tool that I've added into this to help start healing this part of myself, but healing the feminine of receiving. So I think a lot of women in particular have been conditioned to really step into their masculine of, control, structure, produce, all the things, right? And for me, I realized, like, I give so much, but I have such a hard time receiving, and I have such a hard time asking for help. And I think that's really crucial right now. Like, we need to get into a practice of learning how to ask for help when we need it. Obviously, we can hold on our own in a lot of ways. That sovereignty piece is important, but also knowing it is also our responsibility to say, I need help here. I need some support. Can you give me some advice? Can you give me some feedback like you asked for, right? And look what happened. You realize, like, yes, I am a love that never leaves, but also there's so much love available to us. Like, there's so much. And, not even just the romantic love, but platonic, like the sisters in my life that I've created, like just in this past year, the women that I've met, like I'm healing this huge sister wound of, like, oh my gosh, I can lean on them and talk to them about these feelings that I'm having, and I'm not alone in these feelings. Yeah. And coming back to that piece of not feeling separate from one another, and, the power of prayer and thought and all the things. It's like remembering we're not separate. So yeah, like, I felt nervous today. You felt nervous yesterday. Like, we're experiencing such similar things. And it's like, oh my gosh, once we can, like, remember that we all experience that, it makes this journey a lot easier of like, okay, wait a second. Like we're all so similar and we have so much that our vulnerabilities are how we relate to one another. And so a big part of my healing just in the past few months is I bought myself I bought myself crystal bowls. So I've been on this sound healing journey for the past few months, and it honestly, I didn't realize how much I needed a creative outlet that wasn't so structured or analytical or logical, because I love to write, I love to communicate, and that can be kind of structured, right? And so sound has brought me back into this place of equilibrium of, I use my left and my right hands. I'm not planning the next bowl to play. I'm just intuitively playing what feels right in the moment, depending if I'm playing for myself or for groups. Like I did one session with this group of women, and there was a lot of womb energy that was going on, a lot of womb healing. And I didn't realize, and I was just playing the sacral bowl. Like I just kept feeling called to play the sacral bowl. And as soon as everyone shared at the end, we did breath work and then the sound. And then at the end, when everyone shared, they were talking about how they were like, why did I feel so much energy in my womb space? I feel like I was doing so much womb healing. All 4 women had similar shares. We didn't explain that in the beginning, but to hear that, I'm like, wow, we really are so connected. Our energy fields are so in tune with one another. And once we can have that openness and relax, part of healing, like we have to fully relax. And that's why I love sound. It helps us fully surrender, and it shifts our consciousness out of that monkey mind, that thinking place. Like we can feel again, we can get into our bodies and the innate intelligence that is within that. And it shifts the energy. And again, we can acknowledge it, and then we can free it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, this is a topic that I love. Like sound has been a part of my life for decades. I mean, it's what I did professionally, building custom home theaters, which, I still do for some of my clients. And the sound aspect of building a theater was always, in my opinion, the most important aspect of it. Like I would always tell customers, like, I would rather you spend the majority of your budget on the sound system than on the visual representation of the system, because without quality sound, we won't achieve the same emotions that that movie or that soundtrack was meant to create within us. Because Nikola Tesla says, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in the terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. What is music except the combination of all 3 of those things? It's energy, it's sound frequencies, but it's also vibration, the felt sense of the music that we are listening to. So it's like, even if you can't hear, you can still feel music. Beethoven couldn't hear the music that he was playing, that he was creating, that he was channeling into the world. But he cut the legs off of his piano so the piano was on the ground so he could feel the notes that were coming through. So then his body is in direct resonance with the music that's being channeled through, so he can feel the distinction between what is being played versus what he is hearing inside. And when those 2 things matched, that's what was able to come forth into the world in the beautiful music that he was able to create. So intriguing that you were able to tap into the energy of the group to recognize what the collective was asking for.
Yeah.
And you met that with resonance. You met that with the resonance of the energy that needed to move and shift based upon the frequency in which was needed to allow that to happen. Because each one of our chakras operates on a different sound frequency. So as we listen to different sound frequencies, you've got frequencies of, I'm going to try and do this off of memory here, but I think it's 369 hertz is for the root chakra, and then 417 is for the sacral, 528 is for the solar plexus, 639 is for the heart, 741 is for the throat, 852 I think is for the third eye, and then 963 is for the head. Y'all have to do your own, Google that, double check and make sure that I'm right.
I'm not able to.
I'm pretty sure that is correct, but You can test this by just going onto Spotify, going onto Apple Music, Pandora, wherever you listen to music, YouTube, and type in those frequencies. Sit down with yourself and listen. And listen to what part of your body starts to vibrate with that music that you're listening to.
Yeah.
And it's always going to correlate to that part of your body. Yeah. So it's fascinating at how much sound really can help us to shift our energetic state. You can go from feeling bad and feeling super down, and then you pop on a song that's very uppity, that's lively, that is something that you really enjoy listening to. And next thing you know, you go from feeling down and depressed, all of a sudden you're dancing around and jiving with that music, and you completely shift your energy in a moment.
It activates our cells. Like it literally, just like breath work, just like, there's so many different modalities. And I think combining like breath with the sound, it's been such a shift, not within myself, but within my sessions too. Like there's such a difference when, instead of talking about things, like we just experience the feeling of sound. And, I'm just, as you were talking about that, like I go to a lot of music festivals. I love EDM, electronic dance music. And,
Sorry, that was the kitten just chiming on some music randomly while we're talking about music.
I love this.
The universe in the absolute amazing ways.
I love it so much. So cute. But yes, when you're at a festival, so when you're at like a music festival and you go see a DJ and it's like hyped up music, you're really vibing with the people around you. And then another DJ comes on because, festivals, it's like back-to-back DJs. And it's not a DJ that's you're in resonance with. And you're like, my energy just changed completely. Yeah. I'm going to go to a different stage. Like it's just that simple. And, I talk about epigenetics a lot of like noticing our external environment, how that impacts us. So it's like, sound healing. Yes, that's one avenue, but just noticing the music you listen to, right? Like listening to the lyrics, like that all impacts us on an unconscious level, a subconscious level. Like if we're not aware of that, we're inviting in these energies. And so, with sound healing in particular, I'm a novice at this. I am not an expert by any means. Like I've received several sound baths, but I felt this deep calling to get my own set for my birthday. And that was another one of those intuitive moments of like, this is another way I can take action, because I was feeling out of balance with my masculine and feminine. And for whatever reason, the bowls I felt really called to. And you don't have to be certified in getting bowls. Like I really don't think that's part of it. It's an instrument, it's a tool. And so, if you're feeling called, if you're feeling activated, inspired by this, go buy yourself a bowl and just start, go into a store, a crystal store, or look online. And, if you're needing some heart healing, chakra healing, get a bowl that's in resonance with that. You can take all these tools that we're giving you and implement them in different ways. And you don't have to be an expert. Like, Adam and I are not healers. We are space holders. And so if you're feeling this call to make a shift, maybe start there, get yourself a bowl, or start playing binaural beats on Spotify and see. I started doing that in the morning, playing it before I start my day. And I noticed a huge shift in my energy just by putting on some music as a way to help, again, ground, so that I can show up for my clients, for my relationships, for myself in ways that are in alignment with who I really am. And music is a really powerful tool. And, it just like breath work, it helps us release those stagnant energies. It brings things to the surface so that we can heal it. And I really think that we can't heal unless we're relaxed. So like I said, I've said it many times, like we're in a privileged state to say, I can relax right now. I can find time in my day to relax. Okay, so it's my responsibility to heal whatever is hidden. And it's not an excuse anymore. And I think that's what is all coming online for us. Like we are in this period of seeing what's been hidden within ourselves, but also within the collective. And so, the feminine is being healed right now within us. How can I heal the feminine within myself, but while still supporting the masculine? Like there's so much within that. It's going back to that. What's my inner state? How is that contributing to the collective state?
And so I want to what you just said of how is your inner state contributing to the collective state, but I kind of want to like take the flip side of that is how does the collective alter our inner state?
Mm,
And I think this is something for people who like listen to the news every single day and
mm,
constantly inundate themselves with the troubles of the world. And the reality is like we did not evolve to know all of the world's problems in every single moment. Like
yeah.
that just was not what our consciousness was designed to take in. It was designed to take in what's happening in our immediate field, what's happening within our tribe, what's happening within just our immediate world around us, not what's happening on the other side of the globe. And so like now that we have, news outlets that can cover all over the internet, TV, YouTube, social media, that constantly are keeping this projection of, lack of a better term, the world going to shit,
Mm-hmm.
that alters our inner state the more that we feed into that.
Yeah.
So I would like to offer the opportunity to everybody, like if you're watching the news all the time, or if you're constantly monitoring what's happening in the Middle East and all of the wars, like, yes, it's good to know what's happening, but don't inundate yourself with it because
Yeah.
that's drastically going to affect how you're going to be able to show up because that's taking on so much of your energy. And especially when it's something that's outside of your control, that's just a waste of energy because you can't change it. You can't make a difference to what's happening across the globe, but you can make a difference to what's happening in your immediate field. You
Yeah.
can make a difference to what's happening inside of you.
Yeah.
So give yourself the permission to like let that stuff go. It's again, it's not to say that what is happening throughout the world isn't horrible, isn't awful. It absolutely is. My heart goes out to all of those people that are suffering, that are going through these horrendous times. But I also know that there's nothing that I can do to change it
Yeah.
except to change myself, to
Yeah.
keep coming back into harmony with myself and with the collective in that regard, and continuing to try and shift my energy to a higher state of consciousness, to a
Yeah.
higher vibration, so that I can emanate that higher vibration, that then I can co-regulate with the people that I meet throughout my life and help them to raise their vibration. So if we all collectively just raise our own vibration to then co-regulate with everybody that we meet to again continue to raise the vibration, all the stuff that's happening that's of lower vibration will eventually settle itself out without us actually having to do anything.
Yeah. I I totally agree. And like our nervous systems were not designed to take in this much
No.
information at all times. And some of it's not even true. Like some of
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
right. And of course, a lot of it is, but this is like where discernment is so important and seeing our true self and understanding what, you know, feels right for us. Like this is where that work comes in. And, if you're like not taking care of the relationships in your life and you're not supporting the people that are closest to you and you're fixated on everything that's happening in the collective without addressing what's happening in your personal life, then that is contributing to the fear narrative, that is contributing to the stress and the pressure and the tension. you know um it's not our responsibility to take on all of the problems of the world.
Yeah.
However, it is our responsibility to make sure that we are supporting the people that are closest to us, how we interact with people at the grocery store, the person that's checking you out. Are you smiling? Are you conversing? Are you asking how their day is? Or are you just ignoring them? Right? Like that little piece alone makes a huge difference. In the past, when I would go to the gym, I would just have my headphones and kind of look down and not really acknowledge anyone. But now I'm making an effort to like smile at people because we have no idea what people are going through. There is so much happening collectively. And, we're all feeling into that. But even in people's personal lives, people are sometimes can't even get food on the table for their family. There's people experiencing death within their families. People are experiencing job loss, like not sure how they're going to pay bills. Like we have no idea what's going on with other people. So again, if we are not putting our feet on the earth. Say, I do think it's important to become informed and aware of certain things that are going on globally. Yeah. But then once you do that, go outside and put your feet in the grass and get some sunshine and like take a deep breath. Maybe that means going and hugging on your dog for a little bit longer, or kitty cat, like whatever it may be. Like, it's those small actions and habits through our day. It makes up the totality of our life. And, that's why I really am an advocate for having rituals, at least morning and evening rituals. Like, how am I checking in with myself? How am I feeling today? Okay. So like yesterday I woke up and I was like, I am exhausted. Like, I am drained. I have not a lot to give today. So I'm going to make it today a priority of restoring my energy and coming back to life so that today I can show up and be on this podcast. And I felt vitality this morning. I felt my creative life force energy flowing through me today because I took the space to play my bowls yesterday, to journal, to pull some tarot cards, like to do the things that do bring energy back into my being. Like, that is what I'm talking about with like taking responsibility. It's like waking up, doing a full body scan. How am I feeling in my body today? I feel like shit today. So guess what? Maybe I'm going to take an extra nap later on today, or I'm going to eat nourishing foods and make that a priority. Right.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes Netflix and chill is a great option if you really are completely like wiped out and just need a moment to detach. But it's not becoming, it's recognizing the patterns and not falling into those habitual patterns. And I got caught in that story earlier this year. And I'm so happy that I had that moment, like that dark night of the soul, which I believe is going to keep happening throughout our lives. Is we have to embrace the darkness so that we can embrace the light. It's that ritual of, we have to let go and then we can bring in, let go and release. And that's transformation and death and rebirth. And that's what this cycle of life is all about. And if we can start to, take that personal accountability of like, how do I feel today? How am I going to show up today? How do I need to change my energy? How am I going to do that? Then I believe that we are contributing to a better future for our world. And whatever is going on in our own consciousness is going to feed into the collective consciousness. So if you're in a state of fear, okay, what do I need to do? Not to ignore it, not to put it away for another day, but why am I feeling so fearful today? Oh gosh, I just watched 10 videos on Instagram of horrific events and tragic things that are happening. Maybe I need to take a day off of social media today as a way to come back to center and alignment and recognize I am safe where I am.
Yeah.
Right. So it's those little things throughout the day and those little steps throughout a day. It's like, how are you talking to yourself when you wake up? How are you making your bed? Are you complaining about making your bed? Are you complaining about doing the dishes? Are you complaining about driving to work? Or are you saying, I get to? What an honor it is. And I think a really big part of my healing this year is remembering my aliveness. And I think that's what breathwork brought back to me. It's like, I'm not here to be numb. I'm not here to be in this place of feeling like I can't feel anything. I want to wake up every single day and feel alive, connect to my breath, feel my body, feel what's present within that. And then, that's what makes life so exciting. And that's how we keep getting that momentum to keep moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and when we keep ourselves in a state of numbness, like numbness is an active process.
Yeah.
It takes energy to maintain that state of numbness and to not feel things.
Right.
It almost takes just as much energy to allow yourself to actually feel stuff versus not feeling stuff.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to the point in my life, I would rather feel it, let it move through me so I can then move on, than to continue to do things that just numb myself, that keep me from feeling, that then push it away. And then next thing I know, I have even less energy because I'm wasting energy on holding on to the energy of the emotions that I don't want to feel.
I was reflecting on our last podcast and your question that you asked of what did you have to embrace in order to expand? And I think I said grief, and I still stand by that. And why I really am feeling into that, it's like, I have to let this feeling move through me so it can just die off almost. I have to let it go. I have to surrender so that I can step into feeling alive again. And I really do believe that's what we're all feeling into, is we're grieving this old world that doesn't exist anymore. And so we're trying to grasp on to things that are comfortable and remind us of that. And within that, we're unable to move forward. And so I think we're all, what 2020 brought us, it brought us this huge flashlight to shine a light on all of the things that are hidden within the shadows of our own life, within the collective, so that we can bring it to the surface, see what's true, and then we can heal. But if we keep pushing those things away, we're never going to be able to transmute that energy. We're never going to be able to flow through our life, because we're just doing things based on conditioning, based on programming. And I know with me, with my Aquarius rising, I'm like, I want to rebel against all of that and create a new world that is centered in love, not in fear, not in pain, not in suffering. Of course, we are going to experience that. That's the duality of this world that we live in. However, I choose love. I choose love before anything else at this point. And I always just keep saying, I am a love that never leaves. I am a love that never leaves. And that always brings me back to center of like, I have everything I need, and anything else that comes into my field, into my world, is a bonus, because I'm not going to be here one day. You're not going to be here one day.
Yeah.
So I don't want to wake up. I don't want to end my life saying, how did I contribute, or how did I not contribute? What did I wish I would have done? I think this is coming back to that what we were talking about, courage. Okay, what fears do I need to face, so that when I do end up on my deathbed, however that may be, I know that I made an impact in the world. I know that my energy contributed to the world. I know that those smiles that I gave to the people at the grocery store, at the gym, or wherever, contributed. And I didn't take away. I didn't bring on more suffering to the world, but I actually embodied more light, and I was able to inspire others to embody their light as well.
Yeah. I recently read the book Polishing Your Mirror by Ram Dass, and he talks a lot about what you just brought up, and how, he uses the mantra, I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. To recognize that when we live from a state of loving awareness, then we can love everything. That loving everything includes loving your depression, loving your anxiety, loving all of the quote unquote negative emotions that we feel, and loving all of the positive emotions, the joy, the gratitude, the happiness, in equal amount, in equal measure.
The joy without everyone has to have a seat at the table. All of those emotions have to have a seat at the table so that you can enjoy it. And then you can also be like, wow, when you go through deep periods of grief and pain, you like come out the other side and you're like, wow, I can feel ecstasy within my body. I can feel the aliveness within me. I can feel joy. I can feel bliss and harmony and all the things. But if you don't have balance with the pain, and you avoid the shame and the guilt and all of that, you can never feel the other side of that coin.
Exactly.
Being a human, it's the full range of this existence. And if we don't have that, I don't know. I really do believe a huge part of my mission is to give that back to people. After the sessions I do with people, they're like, wow, I can feel my body again, or I haven't felt this bliss in a long time. I forgot what it feels like. Or releasing physical pain. Wow, I forgot what it feels like to not have physical pain. And it's like, if that's my contribution to the collective, and I did that for one person, that's enough for me.
Yeah. I recently received a message after a group in-person session that I did locally at a yoga studio here in Everett, Washington. And the woman said, I think I fell in love with myself again.
Oh.
And it was like, even now, it still like chokes me up, because to recognize the power of holding space for somebody, of being there in the moment where they're allowing themselves to feel something that they haven't allowed themselves to feel for a really long time, is such a great gift.
It's the best gift.
Yeah, it feels like I'm living in a dream now, because I'm finally living a life in alignment with my soul and with my heart, than just aligned with my dreams and aspirations and wants and desires.
Mm.
Because when you live from your heart and your soul, everything is bigger than you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's your guiding light. It's your North Star. It's, that piece that you said of like, we have to fully love ourselves, all parts of it, in order for us to fall deeper in love with the world around us, the people, the experience. And I was listening to this podcast. I don't know if you know who Tyler Henry is. He's like a medium.
No, I'll have to look him up though.
He's amazing. He does like readings for celebrities and all these. I just love his readings because, again, I love understanding the afterlife. And I think one of the questions, I'm going to totally butcher this, but he was talking about how, like, what is one of the themes that people on the other side, or souls on the other side, talk about. And he talked about how the small things, the simple things, are the greatest gift in this life. So like watching the sunrise, watching the sunset, watching the hummingbirds, listening to the birds, like feeling the sun on your skin, like that is that's what makes this life so beautiful, because we don't get to experience that when we pass on. So I don't know if you've seen the movie Soul, Soul. It's a Pixar movie, but there's this moment in the movie when I can't remember the soul's name, but she gets into the human body and she eats pizza for the first time, and she catches this leaf, and like that moment always gets me in the movie, because it's like anytime I'm in nature and I just have my feet on the grass and like look at the trees and watch the sunlight coming through the trees, I always have this like deep gut feeling. I'm like, I know that when I pass on, this is what I'm going to remember. The hugs that I give people, the moments where I feel into their energy and hug people after sessions, or hug my husband, or give kisses to my dogs. Like those are the things I'm going to remember, not the trivial bullshit things on social media, not anything other than the feeling that I have of being just on this planet and feeling my breath, feeling my body, feeling the sun. And just those are the moments I know I'm going to remember. And so I try to really soak those in when they come. Like the sun sets here in Arizona, like I go out and I'll sit and just gaze into the sun, and I'm like, this is all I'll ever need. This is all I'll ever need. And it's just, even knowing astrology and watching the cycles of the moon and watching those patterns, like that's what keeps me moving in life in a lot of ways, of having that connection to something greater than me. That it's such a beautiful existence, but we just have to get out of the way sometimes in order to see so, while still loving ourselves in that process. It's a delicate balance, but I really do believe we're coming into this new earth, new frequency of understanding like love is what's going to trump everything. Always. Love is going to bring us together. And again, it's coming back to that internal battle we have with ourselves, with the people in our life. Like, how can we heal that so that we can come together collectively, to keep this planet moving forward, because it's such a beautiful place to be. And I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to be here with you, having this conversation about life. Like, what an opportunity, what a gift it is to just be here in this moment.
Truly grateful to have you here, and definitely grateful for this conversation. This is, we talked about it a little bit before we hopped on the podcast, and I mentioned it in the intro of like really allowing this to just be a conversation, to not really feel so much like it's an interview and I need to ask specific questions and try to steer the conversation, even though we've very eloquently touched on all of the topics that we really wanted to touch on. That it just goes to show back to that whole like trusting yourself, trusting the flow of the universe, that what is meant to be will always be. What is not meant to be will never be. And so if you're trying to control your life so much, trying to create a specific trajectory, trying to have a certain job, trying to be with a certain partner, trying to show up a certain way, if that's not what your soul intended for you, well, guess what? That's why your life is hard. That's why nothing seems to be working out the way that you want it to, because we don't always get what we want, but we always get what we need.
Yeah, it's so true. And just allowing, like when you gave us that permission today to just flow, like it made me soften, right? And I think Richard Rudd said that awakening and enlightenment is a series of softenings. And so if we can just soften,
love Richard Rudd.
I do too. If we can soften and we can flow through life, and this is really healing that feminine, like we'll find fluidity in the rest of our life. And so thank you for giving us that permission today to do so, because maybe within just this conversation, we're going to inspire others to just flow and trust. And, easier said than done when you're in a place of where you do feel safe. But if you are in that position, see what happens. Like, don't just try to open one door, maybe try to open another door. Maybe just open your heart up enough that it gives you access to other options in life, right? Like I never in a million years thought I would be where I am, giving astrology readings, doing breath work, sound. I never thought I would be like a mystic in this way, but it makes sense. Like the totality of my life, the building blocks that got me to this point, everything makes so much sense. And it's because I've really learned how to surrender. I'm reading the book, The Surrender Experiment by Michael A. Singer right now.
It's literally on my bookshelf as one of the next books to read.
Oh, it's so good. And, I've been really focusing on like just allowing the universal flow of my life to just unfold as it's meant to. And I keep saying, like, I trust the timing of my life to get me exactly where I'm meant to be. And I don't want to rush it, because once we get to that point, like you said, like either you jump over the box or you take that step. It's like, I don't want to rush either. I want to be exactly where I am, because, this moment we'll never have it back. And, the next step could be, your last step. So it's like, what are you going to do now? How can you be present in here now? Be here now.
Be here now. Thanks, Ramdas. So, Hali, as we were wrapping up this conversation, I would love to, since we didn't dive into too much astrology on this, I would love to capitalize on your experience of where do you see the energies going throughout the rest of the year, and what can all of us do to help set ourselves up for success as we move towards shifting into 2024?
Yeah. Tuning into next year, and, I've really been focusing on eclipse season just because it's like so potent right now. But there is a big shift happening in regards to the planet of Pluto, and Pluto is the planet of power and transformation and death and rebirth, and a lot of the conversations we're having. So I would say, if you are gripping on to anything right now, like we were talking about, if you're feeling stuck, this is the time to really let go and release. Because if you are ready to transform your life, the energy is going to help you be accessible to that, I guess. Like the energy right now is so potent in allowing us to reclaim our personal power. So honestly, a lot of what we talked about is what I would recommend, of like doing that full body scan first thing in the morning, having that full awareness of self and recognizing where you're giving your power away. Where are you distracted? Where are you avoiding? Where are you numbing? Because this next cycle, it's going to show us all where we've been disempowered, right? But also, like, from that place, how are we unable to contribute to the collective? Because we're in this age of Aquarius, which is all about coming together as a community, as a collective, and recognizing our role within that. But that means we have to see our true self. We have to allow ourselves to see and bring things to the surface that need to be healed. So if there are things that you've been like thinking about, like me going to the gym, for example, if you've been feeling into something and thinking about something, the time is now to take action on it. I don't do a ton of predictive astrology just because our minds are so powerful. But what I'm feeling into is, if you are ready to transform your life, the time is now. Really like reclaiming that state of power of choice, right? every single choice we make right now matters, from what we eat to what we're consuming, food, social media, everything, who we're engaging with, who's in our community. Maybe there's certain people that aren't in alignment and or in resonance with you anymore. The time is now to cut cords in a loving way, right? As a way for you to feel vitality in your life, as a way for you to come back home to yourself and to remember that everything that you'll ever need is within you. But if you're outsourcing that power, you're always going to be influenced by the environment you're in. So, we have to, this is a time of understanding our identity, our individuality, our uniqueness. But if we can't do that, then we can't contribute in ways that are actually productive. So, just looking ahead, spiritual warriorship. How are you cleansing your energy every day? How are you showing up for yourself every day so that you can show up for everyone else? And how can you ask for help when you need it? This is really what this energy that we're feeling into, at least until 2025. This is the energy that we're feeling into. And take some time and reflect what was going on in 2013 to 2016. Because a lot of those similar patterns are going to show up right now. And it'll show up in a different package, right? And it's a matter of how you respond to that package, how you unwrap that package, more or less. So kind of general, but again, like, you create your reality. Your thoughts create your reality. If your nervous system's dysregulated, that's going to create your reality. So notice, are you feeling contracted? Are you feeling small? Are you feeling disempowered? And what can you do to take steps to move forward and come out of that place?
Beautiful. And I just want to add a little note to that of, just the feelings of being small or disempowered, of not being enough, or that imposter syndrome that comes up. I can speak from my experience of yesterday's call that, I've been helping to teach these classes for over a year now. This is the first class that I actually fully led without the founders there. Stephen was still there to offer support if need be, but he allowed me the opportunity to fully lead.
Trust.
And all of that imposter syndrome was still there. So it's not that these feelings are ever going to truly disappear, or that we're never not going to feel them. But your trust in yourself, your trust in the universe, and again, your trust in the people that you surround yourself with, when that becomes greater than that little voice, that's when you tap into your own personal power. That's when you can step into the role that you are meant to be. And, I can't tell you the amount of comments and DMs that I received from people yesterday, especially after I shared on my stories of just feeling nervous and feeling like I wasn't enough. Like, who am I to show up and teach this class when, I, at the beginning of 2022, was just learning it myself.
Right.
But to recognize that if I was meant to be anywhere else, that opportunity wouldn't have presented itself.
Mm.
If I was meant to do anything other than what I was meant to do yesterday, it wouldn't have turned out as good as it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that trust, and I leaned heavily into that trust, was what allowed it to unfold the way that it did.
Yeah. And your authenticity. I think that's a really big piece too. I'm reflecting on like the Saturn cycle as you're talking about this. It's like being authentic to your true nature. And doubling down on your spiritual practices. This is another key thing that's going to be important for us to see over the next year and a half or so. But like, what is your connection to prayer? What is your connection to your higher power? Like, as you're saying, because if there's a disconnect, then we're going to feel untethered. We're going to feel ungrounded. And so, whether that's connection to your higher self, whether that's connection to God, universe, spirit, source, goddess, nature, whatever higher power you connect to, this is the time to call upon. And that can be, that's a form of asking for help, right? Yeah. And holding the vision, getting clear on your vision for your life. How do you want to contribute? Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world? What do you want to embody? How do you want to feel every day? Holding the vision, surrendering that you're held, and then trusting that everything's going to flow as it's meant to.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring up that authenticity, because I recently came across a research study where they took a huge group of people. I want to say it was right around 2,000 people or something like that. And they hooked them up to a bunch of different electrodes and test machines to measure the vibrational state of their emotions. And what do you think was the highest vibrational state?
Love.
That was the common answer of what most people gave, thinking love is the highest vibrational state. Actually, the highest measurable vibrational state, and this was like by a massive amount, was authenticity. People showing up truly authentic to who they were drastically outmeasured people who were showing up in a state of love. Because when you are being authentic, you are living unconditional love, because you are honoring the authenticity of your soul's expression and the fact that you are the only one that can bring that expression into the world. Nobody else, because you're the only one with your soul.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And the world is craving it. The world is craving it. I don't know if you've noticed that anytime I'm vulnerable on social media, I get more of a response than anything else, because it's not filtered. It's not, I'm not concealing anything. I'm just sharing my heart. And that's what we need. We need to share our vulnerabilities. Like I said earlier, it's how we relate to one another. It's what makes us us. And that's how we can tap into our unique essence and embrace that and embody it, and not live in denial or put on a filter. Like I said, like, we can just let that go and just be and have conversations like today that are just open and real and raw. And that's how we heal. That's how we relax. We're not putting on a front, but we can actually relax and just be ourselves. And then if someone isn't in resonance with that, so be it. They'll go find another healer or another person to work with or another person to be friends with. We always attract the people in our life that we're meant to be in alignment with and in resonance with. So it's so important. Like, be vulnerable, share your truth. And if you're unclear on what your truth is, go inward, take a moment, and then you can express. But don't get riddled in what society is telling you, because it's not true. It's not your truth. So just keep coming back home to yourself in any way that you can.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, Hali, I greatly appreciate you coming and having this beautiful conversation. Do you have any offerings that are coming up that people can get in touch with you if they really want to work closer with you?
Yeah. So I do virtual group sessions every month. I try to align it with the full moon, depending. So I do virtual breathwork group sessions. I do one-on-one sessions as well, breathwork sessions. I do astrology readings, so I can do full natal chart readings. But honestly, I also do monthly newsletters where I do astrological updates. And that's like a really beautiful spot. Like, if you want to just kind of tune in and drop in into like what's going on in my world and how I relate that to the astrological events, like, that's a really great place to connect with me. But there are things in the pipeline that are coming up. So if you want to follow me on socials, like, all of my updates will be there. But those are the ways to work with me right now. I can set up a connection call, and I can create a game plan with you to see what would be the best avenue. Because sometimes astrology isn't it; it's breath work, or vice versa, or sometimes it's a combo of the two. So, that's kind of where I'm at right now. And there are definitely some things in the pipeline, and that's where I've needed to start creating some momentum in my world, so I know how to take action. So I know how to show up for the world in the ways that are needed, and not from what I think that needs, but really listening, finding silence in my being so that I can listen to the world around me and really show up in the ways that are needed right now.
It's fantastic. And listeners, as always, I will have all of Hali's contact information in the show notes below, so you can easily find it, get into contact with her, follow her on Instagram, sign up for her newsletter. I receive it every month, and I always love reading through it and getting those little updates. And it's always beautiful to continue to be able to see your evolution from when we first met around the same time last year.
I know, it's crazy. It's so, if you're in that place of feeling helpless, or if you're in that place of, I've been there, that dark night of the soul, it's like, just just know that it's so important to keep going, and so much can happen in a year. You just keep going, keep going.
Fantastic advice. Well, thank you, Hali, again for being here. And thank you to each and every one of you for listening to another episode of the Embrace and Expand podcast. If you really enjoyed this podcast, feel free to leave a review on wherever you're listening to it. That tremendously helps us to get the word out there. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell notification so you don't miss another posting. Thank you so much for being here. I'll catch you on the next one.